It's got a 34-inch wingspan. This is not stock. It's got a brushless setup in it, and I'll explain more about that in a few minutes while it's flying. I want you to see what it looks like, so here's some images of it on my kitchen table just to give you some size perspective. For a P-51 Mustang, and you're going to see this thing fly at a local airfield here. It's a grass strip RC field. You're going to see it fly in a few minutes. As you can probably tell, this is not the original paint scheme. I've had a lot of good flights with this thing, and I've had a few mishaps with it as well. Because of all the repairs I've had to make to the nose of this airplane, I just decided to get rid of that wrinkled up nose decal and just do a whole new paint scheme on the front end. And I also added some red tail feathers to the... Okay, let's go fly this thing. I constructed a makeshift helmet cam. I used my bike helmet and I strapped the digital camera to the top of it. So as you can tell, I have no focus control, it's all auto, and I also have no zoom control. It's a work in progress. It looks kind of silly, and I won't show you a picture of what it looks like. I'll figure out a way to preset the focus and the zoom. I cut out a lot of the out of focus sections of this video that seem to occur more down at the left end of the field for some reason. Back to the mods that I mentioned earlier. It's pretty much a stock looking airplane with a few minor changes. I removed the entire brushed motor setup system. I had a brushed 370 motor, and I installed a 4100 kVA in-runner, not an outrunner, but an in-runner, and that's installed onto the stock gearbox that came with the airplane. That gives it a lot more power. As you can see, these high loops that you can do, you couldn't do that with a brushed setup, not quite as easily anyway. Now that stock gearbox that I mentioned reduces that 4100 kVA down to a 4-point-something to 1 gear ratio. So that equates probably to about a 1000 something kVA that you would get with an outrunner if you installed it. Now along with the motor, I also replaced the electronic speed controller. I installed a 20 amp brushless electronic speed controller. I also replaced the nickel metal battery that came with it, which was 8.4 volts. I installed an 11.1 volt 1350 3-cell LiPo battery. The reason I went with the 1350 LiPo as opposed to some of the larger ones like the 1800 or the 2000 is because it's physically shorter. It only measures like 2.5 inches long, as opposed to the other ones, the larger ones, they all measure just about 4 inches. So I didn't have to cut away nearly as much foam in the airplane, just a little trimming here and there to get it in. So it's a little lighter. And it does give me 8 minutes of flying time, continuous flying time before it drops off. 8 minutes may not seem like much, but it's when you're out there controlling an airplane and you're turning your head and you're operating controls, 8 minutes can be a long time. I usually fly like 6 to 7 minutes. This reverse turn nearly got away from me as it came back directly over my head instead of in front of me like I wanted it to. This airplane weighs somewhere between 16 and 17 ounces. It doesn't like a lot of wind, so because of that, the best time to fly is usually just around sunset, right at or before sunset. As you're about to see, this airfield is oriented on an east to west direction. So the sun sets at the west end of the airfield. I like to land right to left. It's because I'm right-handed, I don't know. And the wind today just seems to favor a right to left landing. And as you can tell, it's so easy to get lost in the approach in the sun. And it causes me to make several attempts because you'll make a nice little turn on base coming into final and you lose it right there in the sun. And you never really know where it's going to come out. It's a really dangerous way to fly an RC plane. You can lose it really quick.
Can't get it.
That beeping you hear behind me is a timer I had set for 7 minutes. That gives me 1 good minute to get this thing on the ground once it goes off.
Beautiful. Finally got one.
One thing I should mention is that I did replace the stock wheels that came with this airplane with larger diameter wheels that would make it roll a little bit easier in the grass like this. They only cost a few dollars from the local hobby shop. Doesn't take much to change them. Oh, and by the way, that's one of my 2 original props. Thanks for watching.